And so let's move into part two of this interview. I want to talk about magnet schools
Mm-hmm.
because you address this topic in your book, and so what about magnet
Yeah.
schools? Why you talk about magnet schools? What's
I
the
talk about
problem?
and like I don't want to,
What
there's
they do
not
to
like a
you?
huge I went to a magnet school. Oh, so my elementary school was one of the first magnet schools in our district
Okay.
because so in the 1954, right? Like segregation becomes illegal and we moved to integrate schools. What happened was the move to integrate was focused primarily on the South because the North is fine, but the North
Right.
wasn't fine. And so when it comes to the 1960s, they're like, oh, our schools are really segregated. Okay, they're just looking at schools too, by the way, and not looking at the neighborhoods. And the impact of redlining that led us to these like neighborhood schools being super segregated. So in the 60s, in Syracuse, one of the things that they decided to do was to shut down some schools. And so there was one school, I can't remember the name right now, one school up near the Syracuse University area that was almost 100, it was like 90 something percent Black. And they had Black administrator, they had Black teachers. This might have been in the like later 60s and 70s too. And they shut the school down and they sent all those kids to different schools in Syracuse. And so what that means is families and kids can't be connected to their neighborhood school anymore. And so they did that. That was their first wave of like integration, was like shutting the Blackest schools down and moving them into whiter schools. That didn't work. So then what they did was they asked teachers, they were like, anybody going to volunteer? And I think of like over 500 teachers in the district, 9 volunteered. And a couple of them were Black teachers, right? A couple of them were white. That wasn't enough. So they were like, okay, we're gonna do busing. But again, white folks aren't gonna volunteer to bus their kids into Black schools and neighborhoods because traditionally white neighborhoods and white schools have more resources, especially when you look at like Syracuse too and the redlining map, like all
Mm.
of our like Blacker schools were like the ones that were in the hazard neighborhoods. And so also neighborhoods that don't have a lot of home ownership. So there's not a lot of tax money going into those schools. So then finally they were like, we need to figure this out. Let's try magnet schooling. Because magnet schooling came about in the late 60s, 70s as this kind of like new wave of like integrating schools. And so we had one of the schools, I grew up on the South Side. And so a couple of our schools on the South Side became magnet schools. And one of them opened up a full day kindergarten program. And they were like blown away by how many folks were like lining up to go to that school. And a lot of
Mm.
white families needed that because they're working, right? They need
Mm.
childcare for their kids too. And so they had that. There was another magnet school that was maybe around language arts. And then my school became like the math science magnet school. And so I went to a magnet school not realizing that I was a part of the integration experiment in our city. Or they would have, if they didn't work, they would have changed the ways they were. But magnet schooling worked as a way to integrate our schools a little more. My school was
Mm.
still predominantly Black and brown folks. But we had, like we had some white kids busing in. I don't know who they were, but because most of the kids were neighborhood kids. Like we all walked to school. A lot of us walked to school. But thinking of the school with a full day kindergarten program, they went from like 70% Black to like over the course of 2 years to about 30% Black, which is like, first I'm like, where did all the neighborhood
Wow.
kids go? A lot of those kids I think came to our school. Hi, doggy. Oh, oops, sorry, my dog just walked in.
Oh, it's all good.
um, and so that was like part of the whole like magnet schooling was fascinating to me because I was like, I went to a magnet school, but why was that important? Like I didn't realize why it was important, other than like we got some extra math and science classes. And so also when you look at like testing, our school was labeled as like deficient with testing, but not in math.
Mm.
Um, but they were in language, but that was like the focus, right? Like they focused on how we were deficient in language scores. And then, you know, our principal had a very clear program on how to like integrate some of the language work with the math and science and stuff. But then the school board didn't want to give them money to do those programs either. And you're like, okay, like I don't understand how this is working. So magnet schools are fascinating to me because they came about as a way to integrate our schools. And now they're kind of like charter schools in a way where you have to, like, some of them have intense application process. And, you know, neighborhood folks don't always get their like neighborhood school as their first choice. And I think that's a big problem. Like, for our family, we didn't look at it as, my mom didn't look at it as a magnet school. Like it was the school that she went to, you know, like it was their neighborhood school. There was no other school she would have considered because she had to walk us to school and then take the bus downtown to work. Like
Mm.
any other school we couldn't have gotten to. She didn't want us on the bus when we were in kindergarten. So um really looking at like magnet schools have really changed, and are they serving the purpose of our schools being integrated? And I'm going to say no, because our schools are more segregated now than they were when we were there in as kids. I think integration like peaked in the late 80s, early 90s, and then they started moving towards focusing on the achievement gap in schools instead of like still integrating our schools and neighborhoods. And I don't know how I feel like about all of that. I'm still figuring it out. I don't like the achievement gap, the vernacular, but there's like I'm still processing a lot of stuff
No,
too.
there is a lot to process there. There is a lot to process there, and it is interesting to think about whether the magnet schools are serving their original
Mm-hmm.
purpose or not.
Yeah.
I do find it highly problematic that
Mm-hmm.
individuals that live right in the community,
Yeah.
right where the schools are at, who have been there forever,
Right.
do not have access to their
Yeah.
local school.
Right. Like sometimes you just need to go to your local school because you need to be able to walk to school and walk home without like having your caregiver there, but your neighbors are there to like see you on your way. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that is like the most important thing for a family to have. Um, and that isn't always the case anymore.
So should we scrap magnet schools?
No, I think it's really important to have different types of schools. Um, so the district I'm in now, we don't have magnet schools. Like it's small. We just have four public elementary schools, and then there's a bunch of private schools and one or two charter schools. Charter schools are like a whole other conversation too. I think magnet schools can be really powerful. Like for me, I think going to a math science um, magnet school like helped me to feel like a very confident kid in math and science, which like traditionally a lot of females don't, especially in the 80s. Like we didn't see a lot of female scientists or mathematicians. And so like I grew up into really feeling really confident in math and science, and I loved it. And that was like what I pursued, although it like in high school I took all the like extra science courses and I took advanced math, like because it really grounded me and I loved it. It just kind of made sense. And so I had a great experience in magnet schools, but I think we need to look at the purpose of them again and look at like how they are serving our communities. Are they serving our communities? And if the goal of magnet schooling was around integration in the beginning, how can it come back to that and not like become this elite thing and turn they're like sometimes they feel like private schools, which is messed up. So I don't want to scrap them yet.
Just rethink them
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's almost like we need to go
revisit the
back.
purpose. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I have
and
to
then
think about that more.
figure out, well, what are the What are the action steps that need to be implemented
Right.
for us to get closer to its original intent?
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of that would be like school boards and school committees looking to the community. Like, what do you need for your children here in this district, in this ward? What do your children need?
Mm-hmm.
Um, too. Because if you're not serving the community, like I always think schools should be community centers, and they're not anymore.
At all.
Yeah. I mean, they're closed, they're shut down, after school. Like they're not. So, I mean, sometimes there are places where you can go and there's a craft fair, there's like another event going in, and you get to walk around like the high school or whatever. But they don't, like, COVID kind of shut parents out of schools and caregivers. And schools are having a really hard time finding the balance of having caregivers back in school
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah, I have a pending interview with AJ Crabhill, former Kansas City, Missouri school board chair and
Mm,
Texas Education Agency deputy commissioner. And he's got a book coming out titled Great on Their Behalf: Why School Boards Fail, How
mm.
Yours Can Be Effective.
Oh, nice.
And I'm interested to hear from him, and there's some connections here that I think will be made between this
Yeah.
interview and his interview, because we don't talk about school boards enough. We don't talk about their responsibility. We don't talk
Mm-mm.
about the reality of school boards and how they
Right.
impact what's happening with
Oh
our
my
schools and
gosh.
with our
Yep.
communities. And we definitely don't talk enough about who is serving, who's at the table,
Yep.
who's at the school board table,
Yep.
and do we have all the representatives at the table?
Yep.
Uh, are they really from the community, invested in the
Right.
community, and
Yep.
making decisions for the betterment of the community?
Right. Yeah. No, they're not. One of my favorite, oh, it's not favorite, but one of the things I do is I'll watch our local school board meetings with like my checklist of the like all the like tenets of the culture of white supremacy, right? And then I'd be like, yep, here's fear, here's perfection, here's urgency. It's one of those things where you're like, why are we still like moving in the interest of white domination?
Mm.
Why are we not centering kids in our decision making? Why are these meetings so late at night where kids, like my kids, can't attend them, and they want to know what's going on? So
Right.
there's a lot where like school board stuff, it just feels very inaccessible. um and maybe the meetings are public, but nobody knows when and where they are. Nobody's sharing that. Like schools, like the school principals often forget because they don't even know either. Like, or so
It's a lot. There's a lot
I'm
there.
looking forward to that episode. And then I will
Yeah.
forward it to all of our school board members.
No, well, I'm gonna end up modifying my schedule here, and this is gonna have to be the next episode. There's a natural segue here between what we're talking about right now with magnet
Okay.
schools and now school boards, and what AJ Crabhill has to offer.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so let's move into a couple of fun questions that I have for you.
I like the fun
Um,
ones.
you know, folks, listen, I'm gonna let you inside of our circle. All right. We have a little text thread. We have a group chat, and in our group chat, we'll throw out songs of the day. All right. Music, man, music as a way to just, connect us all and, help bring out the different things that we're feeling and whatnot. And so music is definitely a part of our relationship. Myself, Tiffany, Lorena, Daina Benitez. And so that Tiffany, what is your song of the day?
I'm a little embarrassed to share the song. So first of all, Mary J. Blige's "Real Love" is always running through my head. Roberto knows this.
Yes,
Like
yes.
it is always
She has
there.
stated, she has expressed this before.
It is always there. And it is what like propels me through the world. But my youngest kiddo, he's 6, he started creating this he loves music, he loves singing, and he sings at the top of his lungs. It's beautiful. He's got a really beautiful voice, but he's been singing the Backstreet Boys I Want It That Way.
Oh wow.
And so
I
it's stuck in my
want
yep.
it that way. Tell me
It's
why.
like right, it's always in my head now, and it's in his voice.
Aren't you so
So
mad at him?
a little bit, but also who's the one that introduced him to it? So it's like my fault. I've been
Yes.
like sneaking other things onto his playlist because he'll be like, "Can we listen to my playlist?"
Yeah.
But I have to do it strategically, and so I'm like, okay, which Boyz II Men song am I going to put on this week? Like, which Rihanna song? Like, so that's the one in my head. I'm sorry, it's not that fun or exciting.
Oh, that's a trip. Oh, that's a
Like,
trip.
I'd rather it be like a Jodeci song or something.
Eh. Oh, wow, wow. All right.
What's in
Well,
your head? What's your
um,
song?
the thing is it's not my song. It's there's a couple songs that are stuck in my head, and I'm really irritated with my kids, and I'm irritated with I think it was my friend Hineda who put them on to this zombies movie.
Mm.
Um, it's uh, so I think the movie's called Zombieland,
Ooh, okay.
and they got a couple songs like they're very catchy. I'm not going front. They're very catchy, but it's driving me insane. Like I can't even take it anymore. If my kids sing it, like the next time they sing it, I might have to. I might have to like put them on timeout or something. I don't know. Like
I
I
always go like, "Can you turn your volume down?" And then I just shut the door.
not only do they not turn their volume down, but if I shut the door, like they just gonna turn it up.
Oh, sorry.
I feel like they're targeting me.
They
Have
are.
Have you ever heard the story of the human and the zombie? I think
I'm
I heard
sorry.
it vaguely. It
Oh
goes. I'm
gosh.
like, I know. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna send it to you just to like.
No
I feel
thanks.
like other people need to feel my pain.
No
I feel like
thanks.
other people need to feel my. I'm gonna send both of them to you.
All right, I will send you a recording of I Want It That Way then.
I
But
think like I can't front. Like I think I could rock with that. Little
I mean,
backstreet. I was more of an NSYNC guy,
yeah,
but
I was too, but listening to the two now, Backstreet Boys are better. They
you
were
know,
also more fair and like who got to sing.
that's a good that aligns well with the work that we do, with the equity work that we do.
I know.
Like I might have to go back and listen to some of their songs and give them
Yeah.
some props.
I will say though that the song that was like I listened to a lot of music while I was writing everything I learned about racism I learned in school. A lot of music that I listened to like middle school, like when I was writing that section, I listened to the music I listened to middle school. But the like overarching song was the like Juicy from Notorious B.I.G. Like that
Mm,
was the overarching
that was a
song
big
that
song. That was a big song.
it was a big song and it just like in the very beginning, he's like, this album's dedicated to the teachers who told me I'd amount to
Yeah.
nothing, and
Oh,
you're
that
like,
was hard.
right? And
That
you're
was
like,
hard.
oh, we
Yeah.
all had those.
Right. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
immediately I'm hooked.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
like,
And the
you saying the thing I want to be saying.
right. And the little chorus, like, you know very well who you are. And I was like,
Yeah.
So
Reach for
maybe
the stars.
so good.
Yeah, man, that was good. That was good. And
Yeah.
that song, see now here we go. Now we in teacher mode. That song would pair well. Like if I'm in the classroom and I'm teaching this stuff and I'm teaching about like advocating for yourself and addressing people that try to squash your dreams or whatever, put you down. I would pair that with a song he had on his next album, which is "Sky's the Limit,"
Mm-hmm.
featuring 112. you know.
I
So
don't remember
it's
that song.
sky's the limit, and you know it can't be fun. You're gonna keep
Oh,
pressing on. Sky's
yep.
the limit, and you know, I just
I remember
picture
the video more than like.
you have what you want, be what you want, have
Mhm.
what you want, be what you want. So I would pair that because it also just shows his trajectory, you know. And but even with his trajectory and success and whatnot, like that he was still pushing that theme. It's like, nah, I'm pressing forward. I'm moving
Yep.
forward. I'm achieving my goals. I'm going after my dreams, regardless of the
Yep.
individuals, teacher or otherwise,
Yep.
that are speaking against my
Yeah.
potential, or regardless of the circumstances.
Yep. And then you compare that with the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Oh my, oh wow, this is just going all the
It's
way
like,
in, all the way
yep.
in.
I'm just gonna like stack it. You're like, I'm gonna ease you in,
Lord,
and then we're gonna,
ease you in.
yep,
Lord, wow, wow, that's good.
yep, yep.
That's good.
I write about the autobiography of Malcolm X in this book and how I had a teacher in college. She was like, okay, we don't have a lot of time for the semester, so you can choose between reading this book, 500 something page book, or watching Thelma and Louise.
What?
Guess
What?
what my class of a whole bunch of white girls picked?
I'm guessing that Thelma and Louise was an easier pick.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
I was so mad. I was like, you made me buy this book with like 3 hours of work study pay, like,
Wow.
yeah,
Good investment.
yep. I still have it. I've read
Mm,
it. Can't tell you how many times I've read it.
powerful. Yeah. One of Lorena's
Yep,
favorite books. Um, and yeah, one of mine too.
yep. That's why I
Okay.
always leave the light on, even when I'm not home. Leave the bathroom light
Mm,
on. Like he
mm,
teaches us so many things.
wow. Oof. All right. Before we do like a whole episode on the biography of Malcolm X,
That'd be so fun.
no, I'm writing it down for the next time. Um, if you had an opportunity to have lunch with any author, dead or alive, that writes about schools and or racial justice,
Hmm.
who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm modifying my stuff now. I'm, like I'm not giving y'all softballs anymore.
I know. I mean, I would love to become best friends with Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum.
Mm,
And she's up in my area right now. Like she's working at one of the universities. And I'm like, how can I just like, I just need to show
mm,
up on her door one day.
mm,
I would love that because her work is so based in understanding the different developmental stages of children. Like her work really centers children.
mm.
Um, and so I like
Yo, her book would pair well with your new book. You know what I'm saying? Like
definitely,
why
absolutely.
all the
Yep,
black kids sitting together in the cafeteria would likely pair well with everything that I learned about racism I learned in schools.
yep,
We're
yep.
gonna we
So
gotta we gotta make that happen.
yeah, thank you.
You know,
I will definitely like hand deliver a copy in a very non-creepy stalkery way. So I would love to sit with her.
hmm.
I think as long as I don't have to do most of the talking, I can just listen to her. But I would also really love to have lunch with Danzy Senna, who wrote Caucasia and New People. She is very like light black biracial too. Um, and she's interesting and like her books are fiction, but her book Caucasia was the first book that I read when I was like in my early 20s where I saw myself. And so I just love to like talk with her about experiencing the world through a similar lens.
I see what you did, Tiffany. You snuck in two.
I did. I am not a rule follower,
No,
so
I gathered, and so I'm not surprised.
yeah.
And one of the tenors of textured teaching is flexibility. So
Yep. Yep.
I'm honoring
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for
I'm
honoring
honoring that.
that.
So, Tiffany, what's a message of encouragement that you have for the people?
Yeah, I have a lot of encouragement. So the thing is, I love working with children and their families because it's where the hope is. And so I guess like my message of encouragement is to like keep centering children and their families. Like don't leave the families out. I encourage you to center the families with the children and to build those like strong relationships because that's where like the constant hope and inspiration in our work is. And as soon as we start to leave them out, then we forget what we're doing and we might as well stop.
That's right. That's right. Keep the children and the families centered.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
where can people follow you?
Mostly on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter much at all. I don't even know if I'm on Facebook anymore. Instagram, my right now my account is set to private because there were a lot of like bots coming in and I was like I don't want to deal with it. But I do like go through it and confirm folks every now
At
and then.
at Tiffany M. Jewell, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what does the M stand for?
Michelle.
Okay.
That's my middle name.
Okay.
I don't know how my mom came up with it.
Well, that's you got good fodder for conversation the next time you chop it up with mom.
Yep.
Tiffany, as always, a pleasure. Wow, you gave
Do
us so
you?
much to unpack here. Listen, I jotted down some notes.
Okay.
We have some further episodes that we're gonna have to dig in.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have to, once I do the interview with AJ Crabhill, I might have both of y'all on at some point to talk about school boards and talk about magnets. And we're definitely gonna have to have a conversation about the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Absolutely.
And we're just going I don't even know where we're gonna start and where we're gonna finish, but we're gonna do some picking
We'll do
apart.
something.
We're gonna do some picking apart and making some connections with what we're
Yep.
experiencing today, because there's Malcolm X gave us so much to learn from,
Yep.
um, and obviously there's much happening today that's connects with
Yep.
his message, and so
Yep.
interested to dig in to that wonderful literary work
Yeah.
by this
Mhm.
influential and powerful man, but
Yep.
also to continue learning from you in our classroom. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yes, yes, yes. We're going to do it again.